The grand hall of the Celestian Council stretched farther than the human eye could see, a cathedral of light and sound suspended within the heart of the capital planet, Lyria. Its walls shimmered with crystalline panels that caught the starlight from orbiting suns, scattering it across the smooth marble floor in a spectrum of colors that seemed alive. The air carried a faint hum, almost musical, a vibration that resonated through the bones of anyone standing within. Delegates from countless star systems had gathered, their appearances as varied as the galaxies they came from. Some were tall, with limbs that seemed to stretch beyond the normal limits of biology, their skin reflective like molten metal. Others were small and delicate, with gossamer wings or flowing tendrils that writhed and shifted with every movement. Yet amid this extraordinary diversity, one figure drew a subtle but undeniable focus: a lone human. Elias Trent walked into the hall with quiet confidence. He did not wear ceremonial robes or the insignia of rank, only a simple dark suit that fit his frame. He was ordinary by most standards: average height, dark hair combed neatly, hands unremarkable. But there was something about his presence that set him apart. Humans were known among the interstellar community as a species that rarely survived long in contact with advanced civilizations. They lacked the technology of the Itari, the longevity of the Kyrian, and the psychic intuition of the Sylvani. Yet there was an energy to Elias, a subtle combination of poise, curiosity, and courage that made other delegates glance at him again and again. He moved steadily toward the dais, where the Queen of Celestia, Seraphine, sat upon a throne carved from living crystal. The throne was more than a seat. It seemed to pulse with her presence, reflecting her moods in subtle shifts of light and color. Seraphine herself was awe-inspiring. Her form was slender and graceful, almost ethereal, with skin that shimmered faintly, catching the light like the surface of a pearl. Her eyes shifted color, from deep violet to pale silver, tracking Elias as he approached, a mixture of curiosity and caution in her gaze. For centuries, she had met emissaries from thousands of worlds, yet humans remained an enigma. They were fragile, unpredictable, and astonishingly resilient. As Elias drew closer, whispers ran like electric currents through the crowd. The Celestian delegates leaned forward in their seats, some craning their multi-jointed necks to get a better view. The Itari representative, a towering figure of polished bronze, muttered to her companion about the audacity of a single human entering the hall without a retinue. The Kyrian diplomat tilted her elongated head, silent, as her many eyes studied the human. Even the Sylvani, who often remained detached and unreadable, seemed intrigued by the calm and deliberate steps of the man from Earth. Elias reached the dais, and the queen rose with deliberate grace. The air seemed to bend around her, a subtle display of power and authority. The room fell silent. Every delegate, every being, felt the weight of the moment. This was not just a meeting of worlds. This was an encounter that could ripple through centuries, a point where the fragile species called humanity might either falter or shine. "You are Elias Trent," Seraphine said, her voice melodic, almost hypnotic, yet carrying the unmistakable authority of a ruler who had lived longer than many civilizations. "Earth sends its champion." Her presence was overwhelming, yet not threatening. There was an intensity that seemed to pull the air inward, making every movement around her feel slower, heavier. Elias felt it too, a strange pressure in his chest, a mix of awe and anxiety. He reminded himself to breathe steadily, to maintain composure, to represent humanity with dignity. "You come alone," she observed, her voice a soft ripple through the hall. "No aides, no guards, no retinue. That is either bravery or folly. And I carry the hope that humans can stand as equals among the stars, not with force, but with ideas and understanding." Even beings accustomed to centuries of negotiation felt the gravity of this moment. Here was a human, standing unarmed, in the presence of a ruler who could have destroyed his planet with a thought. Yet he did not tremble. He did not flinch. Seraphine extended a hand, graceful and deliberate, palm up. "Let us test the courage of your species," a gesture, a symbol of trust. "Will you reach for it?" Humans were not often invited into moments of direct connection with rulers of cosmic empires. He stepped forward, heart steady despite the thrumming tension in the hall, and extended his hand. The moment his fingers brushed hers, a ripple of energy seemed to pass between them. Elias felt a jolt, not painful, not alarming, but electrifying in its intensity. The queen froze just slightly, and for the briefest fraction of a second, her usual composure faltered. Her eyes widened, and a hint of embarrassment colored her expression, an emotion rarely seen on her face. The hall reacted instantly. Gasps and whispers ran like sparks through the assembly. Delegates who had observed countless political rituals now leaned in, captivated by the unexpected human effect. The Silvani diplomats' many eyes blinked in surprise. The Itari representative whispered almost reverently, "The human, it is more than we imagined. I only wish to convey trust. Perhaps your species is more resilient than history suggests." Yet here, in the heart of the most powerful council in the galaxy, a simple human handshake had shifted the balance of attention. The meeting continued, but the energy had changed. Delegates who had entered the hall with rigid expectations now watched Elias with cautious curiosity. They whispered among themselves about the unpredictable nature of humans, about their potential, about the audacity of one man who dared to meet a queen of a cosmic empire as an equal. After preliminary introductions, the queen gestured for him to follow her toward the central chamber, where discussions would move from ceremony to substance. The corridors leading from the grand hall were lined with luminous banners that depicted the history of Celestia. Civilizations rising and falling, star systems uniting and fracturing, empires waging wars that spanned centuries. Elias walked beside her, absorbing the history while maintaining his composure. He noticed small details, the way the light bent around the crystalline walls, the subtle energy that pulsed along the floors, the faint hum that resonated with each step. Every detail was a reminder of how advanced this civilization was, yet how cautious they were about humans. As they reached the chamber, the queen spoke again, her tone softer now, almost contemplative. "Humans are fragile. Yet you possess a spark that few species have. Confidence, resilience, a willingness to stand when others would bow. This is rare among the young civilizations. Perhaps that is why we endure." Inside the chamber, the discussions began in earnest. Trade agreements, territorial boundaries, cultural exchanges, all the familiar aspects of diplomacy. But beneath the formal words and measured gestures, a silent understanding had been established. Humans were not insignificant. A single handshake had reminded a galaxy-spanning council that sometimes courage and authenticity could be more powerful than centuries of protocol and power. And as Elias spoke, calmly presenting Earth's position with logic, humility, and quiet confidence, he noticed something remarkable. Delegates who had doubted humans, who had written them off as weak or irrelevant, now listened intently. They asked questions, they weighed his words. Even the queen, who had centuries of wisdom and experience, now regarded him with a mixture of respect and curiosity. In that moment, Elias realized something profound. Humanity's strength was not in weapons, not in numbers, not in technology, though they had some of all three, but in their unpredictability, their courage, and their ability to forge connections that others could not anticipate. The galaxy might have underestimated humans, but here, in the heart of Celestia, one human had already begun to change perceptions. And as the meeting continued, one fact became clear. The story of humanity among the stars was only beginning. The chamber into which Elias entered was unlike any council room he had seen before. Its walls were smooth, pale crystal, reflecting the faint luminescence of energy conduits that ran along the floor and ceiling. The light pulsed gently, synchronized with some invisible rhythm, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Around a circular table that seemed to float slightly above the ground, representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations were seated. Some hovered in levitation, others extended mechanical limbs, and a few remained in forms that defied human understanding. Each delegate's eyes, or equivalent sensory organs, followed him as he approached the center. There was curiosity, skepticism, and an almost imperceptible tension. Queen Seraphine gestured for Elias to stand beside her. He did so, keeping his posture straight and his gaze calm. Even amid the alien presences, he did not feel fear. Humans were often underestimated, and he intended to use that. The Celestian Council did not yet understand that humanity's greatest power was not technology, nor strength, nor psychic abilities, but unpredictability and the courage to act where others hesitated. The Itari delegate, a being of polished bronze and angular limbs, leaned forward. "You expect us to accept a human representative at this council?" it asked, the voice metallic and resonant, echoing slightly as if amplified by unseen chambers. "Your species has barely mastered interstellar travel. You are insignificant. Humans have survived, adapted, and thrived against obstacles far greater than our size or numbers would suggest. We may be young, but our resilience is not to be underestimated. They were curious, perhaps even skeptical, but they could not ignore that humans had survived when many older species had faltered. The Queen's eyes softened, though just slightly, as if acknowledging his point. You speak boldly, human, yet words are not proof. Actions are. Let us show that cooperation can achieve what conflict cannot. Because humans are adaptable, we learn from mistakes. We value life and knowledge. Our history shows not just survival, but growth. We do not seek to dominate, but to join. Our strength is in our ingenuity and our ability to connect, even where others cannot. Words alone rarely impressed these beings whose lifetimes could span centuries, whose perception of strategy was shaped over millennia. Yet something about the human's calm, confident tone resonated. It was not arrogance. It was not naivete. It was a quiet conviction that drew attention, forced reflection. Seraphine stepped forward. Then we will test this resolve. Earth wishes to join the Stellar Accord, a treaty that governs interstellar trade, resource sharing, and conflict resolution. Yet your species is young. You lack representation, knowledge of galactic law, and alliances. How will you navigate this council without prior experience? We will listen, learn, and act with care. We may be inexperienced, but our perspective is fresh. Sometimes, a new voice sees solutions that old minds overlook. The Queen's eyes lingered on him, her violet hue deepening slightly. There is wisdom in unpredictability, she said softly. Humans may challenge norms, yes, but they may also illuminate truths we have long ignored. He realized that this encounter was more than a test. It was an opportunity to prove that humans could stand not just as representatives, but as equals among interstellar powers. As the Council began the formal discussion, the focus turned to trade routes in the Halixian sector, a volatile area rich in rare minerals but contested by several civilizations. Maps projected in 3 dimensions hovered above the table, displaying fleets, trade hubs, and potential conflict zones. Elias studied them carefully. His human mind worked differently from the other delegates, who often relied on long-established protocols, alliances, or instinctual assessments refined over centuries. He considered the economic impact, the human drive for innovation, and the potential for negotiation that preserved stability rather than sparked war. A heated debate broke out between the Kyrian and the Zethari delegates, voices rising and energy flares pulsing from their forms. It was the kind of conflict that could easily escalate into open confrontation if not managed carefully. Many delegates leaned back, assuming the humans would remain silent, observing but irrelevant. Elias, however, stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said, voice steady but firm. "Perhaps there is a solution that avoids direct conflict and benefits all parties. If trade routes are contested, we can establish neutral corridors, monitored jointly by all stakeholders. This ensures safety, fairness, and continuous commerce without giving one party dominance over another." The Queen's eyes sparkled faintly. "Go on," she said. Elias outlined the plan carefully, emphasizing cooperation, shared responsibility, and the long-term benefits of stability over immediate gain. As he spoke, the energy in the room shifted. The tension that had seemed on the verge of sparking a minor conflict began to ease. Delegates murmured in agreement, and some even nodded subtly. A solution that seemed impossible moments ago was now under consideration, all because one human had spoken. When he finished, silence reigned. The chamber absorbed the simplicity and effectiveness of his approach. Years of negotiation, centuries of protocol, and millennia of precedent had failed to produce such a proposal. Yet humans, unbound by tradition, offered a fresh perspective that even the oldest civilizations could not ignore. The Queen inclined her head. "You see," she said, her tone almost reflective, "this is what humans can do. They act where others hesitate, they perceive what others overlook, and they challenge assumptions with clarity and courage." His goal was not recognition, but understanding. Still, the acknowledgement from a ruler as powerful as Seraphine reinforced something he had always believed. Humanity's greatest strength was its ability to rise, adapt, and inspire, even against overwhelming odds. Over the following hours, the Council debated trade agreements, territorial claims, and resource allocations. Elias participated fully, observing carefully and offering suggestions only when he believed they would benefit all parties. Gradually, the human presence shifted from novelty to respect. Delegates began to listen, to weigh his words alongside their centuries of experience. During a break in the proceedings, the Queen called him aside. Your actions today, she said softly, have not gone unnoticed. Many will still doubt, but some have begun to reconsider the place of your species among the stars. A human's sincerity is rare. Your courage is rarer still. Many civilizations would never dare enter our council unarmed, unprotected, unprepared. Yet you came, and you changed the room. And sometimes, it takes a species willing to be unpredictable to reveal solutions that even the wisest minds overlook. He noticed subtle changes in the delegates' attitudes, glances of curiosity, tentative nods of agreement, even a quiet respect from those who had initially doubted humans. By the end of the day, it was clear that something fundamental had shifted. Humans, once considered minor players, were now seen as capable negotiators, not through force or manipulation, but through clarity, ingenuity, and a steadfast commitment to fairness. Even the most skeptical delegates had to acknowledge that one human, standing calmly, speaking honestly, and acting decisively, could influence outcomes that older, more established species struggled to achieve. The queen returned to her throne for the evening reflection, and Elias remained near the chamber's entrance, observing the reactions of other delegates. He realized that this was only the beginning. Humanity's place among the stars would not be earned through intimidation, technology, or brute strength. It would be earned through courage, wisdom, and the willingness to act where others hesitated. And as the lights dimmed and the chamber quieted, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The galaxy had begun to take notice, not of the size or age of humans, but of their spirit, their resilience, and their ability to shine, even in the presence of beings who had ruled the stars for millennia. Tonight, a human had stood among gods and empires and had not faltered. And tomorrow, humanity's journey among the stars would continue, guided not by fear or pride, but by the quiet confidence of one species willing to step forward and be seen. The following day dawned over Lyria in a wash of soft gold and violet, as the twin suns rose in the distant sky. The capital city glimmered like a jewel, its towers reflecting the light in every direction, while the streets below were alive with activity. Hovering vehicles, citizens from countless worlds, and merchants hawking exotic goods. Yet despite the beauty and bustle of the city, Elias Trent's mind remained fixed on the council chamber. The events of the previous day had been unprecedented. He had not only survived the scrutiny of the galaxy's most powerful rulers, but had impressed them, subtly, with human ingenuity and courage. Now, as he walked along a transparent corridor suspended high above the city, he reflected on the weight of what was to come. Today, the council would address security concerns in the Helix Quadrant, a region notorious for piracy, political tension, and contested trade routes. It was a delicate problem, one that could escalate into war if mishandled. Many delegates were already bracing for heated arguments, and whispers of skepticism about human participation had begun to circulate again. Humans were still young, still underestimated, and yet Elias carried himself with the quiet confidence that had earned him a degree of attention yesterday. Queen Seraphine awaited him at the entrance to the chamber. She was a vision of composure, her crystal-like robes catching the early sunlight, casting refracted colors across the corridor. Her expression was inscrutable, but her eyes held the faintest trace of approval, and for a brief moment, Elias felt that subtle connection again, the one that had sparked yesterday, when the simple gesture of a handshake had shifted perceptions. "You understand the stakes today, human," she said softly, her voice carrying in the quiet corridor. "The Helix Quadrant is unstable. Delegates may act impulsively. Your presence may be tested, not just in words, but in action. Are you prepared? Then let us see if your species can navigate the complexities of conflict without succumbing to fear." Holographic projections of the quadrant hovered above the table, showing trade routes, pirate strongholds, and areas of disputed control. The map pulsed with red zones where conflict had occurred recently, yellow zones where disputes were simmering, and green corridors of safe passage. "Welcome," the Queen said, her voice calm but authoritative. "Earth has been invited to participate in today's discussions. Your insight is requested, human. I have studied the Helix Quadrant thoroughly and have considered potential solutions that may protect trade, maintain peace, and benefit all parties. This is not a playground for children." Some delegates leaned forward, curious. Others tilted their heads, skeptical but listening. Humans were still underestimated, yet there was a quality in Elias that demanded attention. "Then explain your plan," the Queen said. Elias gestured toward the holographic map. The Helix Quadrant is unstable because control is fragmented. Pirate activity thrives where enforcement is inconsistent. Rather than stationing military fleets in every sector, which is expensive, slow, and likely to provoke further conflict, I propose a network of collaborative patrols. Representatives from each major power, including humans, could form rapid response units to monitor routes. These units would operate with clear communication protocols and shared intelligence, ensuring that trade is protected and disputes are resolved before escalation occurs. It relied not on dominance but on coordination and trust, an approach many seasoned negotiators had never considered. The Zethari delegate, a fluid, shifting entity, moved closer, its form pulsing with curiosity. And you believe humans are capable of contributing to such a network? You have no fleets, no experience. Why would your participation matter? Because humans excel in improvisation. We may lack raw resources, but we can adapt quickly, find solutions in real time, and work alongside other species without insisting on control. In situations like the Helix Quadrant, adaptability and collaboration are often more valuable than sheer power. Even the most seasoned delegates recognized the merit of his argument. They had decades or centuries of experience, but many relied on rigid structures, predictable protocols, and pre-existing hierarchies. Elias' approach challenged that. It introduced flexibility, ingenuity, and the kind of rapid decision-making that older species often overlooked. The Queen's eyes gleamed faintly, a rare display of emotion. Humans are unpredictable, yes, yet that unpredictability can yield solutions beyond calculation. Your species may indeed have a place here if it is willing to act wisely and responsibly. Others questioned humanity's capacity to operate effectively, but Elias remained calm, responding with logic, clarity, and examples from human history. He cited instances where humans had cooperated in complex situations, often under extreme pressure, to prevent disaster. By mid-afternoon, the chamber had reached a tentative agreement. Delegates would approve the formation of the collaborative patrol network, including human participation. It was not complete consensus, but it was a start, a recognition that humans, though small and young as a species, could offer meaningful contributions to interstellar governance. After the session, Elias was escorted to a side chamber by the Queen. She studied him closely, her eyes flickering through shades of violet and silver. "You acted admirably," she said, "but the Helix Quadrant is only the beginning. Many civilizations doubt humans, and some may attempt to exploit perceived weaknesses. Are you prepared for opposition? Humans endure, adapt, and rise to challenges. I do not fear opposition. I welcome it as an opportunity to prove that cooperation and reason can succeed where intimidation fails. Your species may yet prove that it has wisdom and resilience beyond what the galaxy expects." Elias observed, understanding that this was more than a hypothetical scenario. It was a test of his species' capability in real time. "Your insight is needed," the Queen said. "You may advise human." But humans excelled in improvisation. He proposed a strategy, a coordinated distraction using small, agile vessels, allowing the convoy to escape while avoiding direct confrontation with the pirates. He suggested a communication protocol that ensured all participating species could act simultaneously and adapt to sudden changes. The delegates debated, but Elias' plan proved sound. Slowly, they agreed to implement it. Over the next hours, the patrol network mobilized. Human representatives, including a small contingent of human pilots trained for rapid response, played a key role. They executed maneuvers that required creativity, quick thinking, and cooperation. By evening, the pirate threat had been neutralized without bloodshed. Trade routes were secured and tensions eased. The chamber erupted in cautious approval. Even delegates who had doubted humanity's effectiveness now recognized the value of human ingenuity. The Queen regarded Elias with a quiet, measured pride. "You have done well today," she said, her tone softer than usual. "Not through force, but through foresight, logic, and adaptability. Your species is young, yes, but it has remarkable potential." As the chamber emptied, delegates discussing the day's events, Elias remained near the Queen. "Your Majesty," he said, "today demonstrated that cooperation can achieve more than confrontation. But I sense there are those who will continue to test us. Humans are prepared, but how do we anticipate their strategies? Humans have an advantage many species do not, unpredictability tempered with insight. You will face challenges, yes, but you have proven that your species can act decisively where others hesitate. That is a strength the galaxy cannot ignore. Older civilizations would test humans, seek to exploit weaknesses, and challenge their resolve. Yet he felt confidence, not arrogance but certainty, that humanity's greatest weapon was not power but spirit, ingenuity, and courage in the face of uncertainty. As night fell over Lyria, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, leaving the city bathed in the gentle glow of reflected starlight. Elias Trent looked out across the council chamber from the balcony, watching delegates return to their homes and preparations for tomorrow. The galaxy was vast, full of danger, opportunity, and wonder. Humans were small, yes, but they had already begun to leave their mark. In that quiet moment, he understood something fundamental. Humanity would not dominate the galaxy through force, but through resilience, intelligence, and the ability to act where others could not. They would be underestimated, tested, and challenged. And yet, with courage and determination, humans could rise to any occasion, inspiring allies, surprising foes, and proving that the smallest species could achieve the greatest outcomes. And as he turned to leave, the Queen's presence lingering nearby, he knew that the next days, weeks, and years would be filled with trials. But trials were not threats, they were opportunities. Opportunities for humans to show that the galaxy had underestimated them for too long. Opportunities to demonstrate that courage, insight, and determination were just as powerful as fleets, weapons, or centuries of experience. Humanity had taken its first true steps among the stars, and the galaxy was beginning to notice. The following morning, Lyria was cloaked in a soft violet haze as the twin suns rose once more, casting long, gentle shadows over the crystalline city. Elias Trent walked alongside Queen Seraphine through the corridors that connected the council chambers with the private council halls. The quiet hum of the city below seemed almost distant here, replaced by a subtle vibration that resonated through the walls, a constant reminder of Celestia's energy and power. Today was different. Today, the council would discuss not trade routes or defensive patrols, but alliances and influence, matters that determine the balance of power across several star systems. Elias could feel the weight of anticipation pressing against him, a tension unlike anything he had ever experienced on Earth. He had proven humans could act with logic, courage, and insight, yet he also knew the galaxy was watching, waiting for the first sign of weakness. A single misstep could undo the progress of the past days. And yet, for the first time, he felt a quiet confidence, not arrogance, but a steady certainty that humans were capable of rising to any challenge. Queen Seraphine's presence beside him was commanding and subtle at once. Her form shimmered faintly in the corridor light, a mixture of grace and power that reminded Elias how far he had traveled, not only physically, but in understanding humanity's place in the cosmos. "The discussions today will be complex," she said softly, her voice carrying a melodic calm. "Alliances are fragile. Some will seek to test humans directly, to see if your species is capable of negotiation, compromise, and restraint. You must observe, respond, and act wisely. We will demonstrate that cooperation and reason can succeed where tradition and rigid protocol have failed." They were quiet, their forms glowing faintly as they shifted and observed one another. Elias could feel the subtle tension in the room. Many were powerful, proud, and accustomed to domination rather than compromise. As the session began, the delegates immediately began discussing contested regions in the Orenthal cluster, a dense area of space where multiple species claimed overlapping territory. Voices rose quickly, and energy pulses flickered around some delegates as they gestured in anger or frustration. It was clear that tempers would flare, and tempers could ignite conflict that would span decades. Humans, in their eyes, were still young and untested. Elias' presence was met with curiosity, and in some cases, quiet disdain. "Humans are not equipped for such discussions," one delegate from the Rethari system said, its crystalline form clinking softly as it moved. "You cannot possibly understand the complexities of these alliances. You are here as a novelty, nothing more." But humans have survived far more complex challenges than territorial disputes among advanced civilizations. We know how to observe, adapt, and mediate. Sometimes, the perspective of an outsider reveals solutions that those deeply entrenched in their positions cannot see. They had grown used to centuries of protocol and rigid negotiation, yet humans had a strange quality. They were unpredictable, yes, but often insightful, capable of seeing connections others missed. This human, standing confidently, calmly, was beginning to draw attention not through power, but through clarity and reasoning. The session grew heated as delegates from the competing factions argued about resource distribution and control. Energy flares sparked in moments of frustration, and Elias noted subtle patterns in their arguments. He observed which species prioritized power over cooperation, which sought to manipulate through intimidation, and which were open to compromise. Humans excelled in analyzing patterns and predicting behavior, and he prepared to act. When the debate reached a particularly tense point, with two factions almost at the brink of conflict, Elias spoke. "If I may," he began, his tone firm but calm. "The current path leads to escalation. It is clear that traditional negotiation alone may fail. Perhaps we can consider a system of shared stewardship, where contested territories are jointly managed, with representation from all involved parties. Each species would have oversight, but none would dominate. This ensures fairness, reduces the risk of conflict, and encourages cooperation." It was practical, fair, and yet unusual. Many had spent centuries negotiating only in terms of dominance and leverage. A neutral approach, suggested by a young human, was unexpected. The Queen's eyes met Elia's, and she inclined her head slightly. "Go on," she said softly. Elias elaborated, outlining mechanisms for oversight, shared administration, and dispute resolution. He emphasized transparency, communication, and the value of human adaptability in ensuring smooth operation. Delegates who had initially scoffed began to nod in consideration. Some murmured quietly, acknowledging the merit of his proposal. The human had not only intervened, but provided a strategy that reduced tension and created a pathway to agreement. Despite this, not all delegates were pleased. Some saw human intervention as audacious, even presumptuous. A delegate from the Vayari system, its form shifting fluidly like molten glass, glared at him. "Your species is untested, inexperienced, and presumptuous. You propose solutions without the weight of understanding our histories. Why should we follow your guidance? Perhaps you will see that collaboration yields better results than conflict." By the end of the session, a tentative agreement was reached to establish shared stewardship of the Oriental cluster, with human representatives included as mediators and observers. Outside the chamber, Queen Seraphine led Elias to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The early evening sky glowed in shades of purple and gold, reflecting off the crystalline towers. "You have done well," she said softly. "The galaxy does not easily accept newcomers, especially ones as young as humans, yet you have shown insight, patience, and courage. These qualities are rare. But we learn quickly, adapt, and value collaboration. Today showed that even when others doubt us, we can act decisively and effectively. But beware, there are those who will continue to test you. Some will seek to exploit your species, to find weaknesses where they believe none exist. You must remain vigilant. Some would see this as an opportunity to challenge them, while others would observe silently, waiting to learn from their successes or failures. Opposition is inevitable," he said, "but humans have faced challenges far greater than these in our history. We endure, adapt, and rise. I will not falter. Your species may yet surprise the galaxy, human. Continue to act with courage and insight. You have proven that even the smallest and youngest species can influence outcomes that others thought impossible." Elias stood on the balcony, considering the events of the day. Human influence was growing, subtle but unmistakable. Their perspective, courage, and adaptability were beginning to reshape the perceptions of even the most experienced interstellar powers. Yet he also knew the challenges ahead would grow. Today's success would invite scrutiny, curiosity, and perhaps hostility. Some species might attempt to test humans in ways that would strain diplomacy, challenge judgment, and force rapid adaptation. But Elias felt ready. Humans had always thrived in adversity. They had survived impossible odds on their home planet and would continue to do so among the stars. The wind of Lyria carried a faint vibration, a hum that seemed to echo through the city. Elias realized it was a reminder, a signal that every decision, every action, every gesture had weight in this vast galaxy. Humanity's journey was only beginning, but it had already begun to leave a mark. Inside the chamber, the council had adjourned, delegates dispersing to their respective quarters. Elias and the Queen remained on the balcony, quietly observing the city and the night sky. For a moment there was silence, a pause in the ceaseless motion of interstellar politics. "You have done something remarkable," Seraphine said quietly. You have reminded them that strength is not always in fleets or weapons. Sometimes it is in reason, insight, and the courage to act where others hesitate. Remember this, human. Your species' greatest power lies not in dominance, but in your spirit. And perhaps, human, the galaxy will learn that it has underestimated your species for far too long. That quality would carry them far, even in the heart of the most complex and powerful civilizations. And as the night deepened, with stars glittering like scattered diamonds across the sky, Elias Trent understood a fundamental truth. Humanity's place among the stars would not be earned through force or intimidation, but through courage, wisdom, and the relentless drive to rise above expectation. The galaxy had begun to notice humanity, and there was no turning back. The council had adjourned for the evening, but the quiet that settled over Lyria was only an illusion. Elias Trent could sense the tension in the air, the subtle undercurrents that even the most carefully trained human mind could detect after days of observing the Celestian Council. Not every delegate had welcomed human influence, and some, it seemed, were plotting to test humanity in ways that might go beyond diplomacy. As he walked through the softly glowing corridors with Queen Seraphine, he noticed a small cluster of delegates lingering near a side chamber. Their forms were darkened by shadows, eyes flickering with suspicion and calculation. Elias recognized the signs. Those who had been quietly skeptical, watching and waiting, had not yet accepted humanity as an equal. They intended to exploit any perceived weakness. "You can feel it," the Queen said softly, as if reading his thoughts. "The opposition is subtle but deliberate. Some will attempt to trap humans into making mistakes, forcing embarrassment or failure. Others will watch, hoping to catch you in hesitation. You must remain focused. Every action has consequence." A holographic projection hovered in the center of the table, displaying maps of the Helix Quadrant and the Orenthal Cluster. But beneath the surface, a trap was already in motion. Certain factions had planted misleading information in the reports, numbers that exaggerated conflicts, projections that suggested instability where there was none. The plan was simple: make humans doubt themselves, appear indecisive, and undermine confidence in human contributions. Elias studied the projections carefully. At first glance, the data seemed alarming. Pirate activity had spiked, trade routes were supposedly disrupted, and allegations of resource hoarding by a small faction threatened to inflame tensions. Many delegates would act immediately, raising fleets or imposing sanctions without verifying the reports. But humans had a talent for seeing patterns others missed. He sensed discrepancies in the projections, inconsistencies that suggested manipulation. "Your Majesty," he said quietly to Seraphine, "this data seems off. The patterns don't align with prior reports, and some metrics appear artificially exaggerated. It may be an attempt to provoke hasty decisions." Many will not question the projections, but humans often perceive what others overlook. Immediate sanctions are required. Acting solely on projections, especially when anomalies are present, could escalate conflict unnecessarily. Humans propose that we first conduct an observational assessment using existing patrol units. We can confirm the facts before responding with force. Their voices carried a quiet authority, grounded in reason rather than fear. The Vayari delegate hesitated, clearly irritated by the human's confidence. The Itari delegate's angular head tilted, a silent acknowledgement that this suggestion was strategically sound. "Very well," Queen Seraphine said. "Humans shall lead the initial assessment. Their approach is sound and fair." His instructions were clear, concise, and adaptable, allowing for unexpected developments while maintaining stability. As reports flowed in, the true nature of the situation became apparent. The alleged spikes in pirate activity were exaggerated. Certain conflicts were normal trade disputes blown out of proportion, and accusations of resource hoarding were based on misinterpretation or deliberate manipulation. The humans' rapid analysis revealed the discrepancies, confirming that some delegates had indeed attempted to create a trap to test humanity. The chamber was silent as the findings were presented. The Vayari delegate's fluid form rippled with surprise and irritation. The Itari delegate's metallic exterior glinted sharply, almost as if reflecting anger. Even the Kyrian, a species known for its calm and deliberative nature, leaned forward, intrigued and quietly impressed. "You see," Elias said firmly, "the data was intentionally misleading. Acting without verification would have escalated tensions unnecessarily. Human analysis has clarified the situation, preventing conflict and preserving alliances. Cooperation and reason have achieved what hasty action would have failed to do. Delegates who had doubted humanity's capability now recognized the practical value of human insight. Humans were not only surviving among these advanced civilizations, they were contributing in ways that mattered. They were influencing outcomes, preventing disaster, and demonstrating that courage and intelligence could be more powerful than raw strength. Queen Seraphine's gaze softened as she looked at Elia's. Your actions have once again proven the strength of your species, human. Even when tested and deceived, you acted with foresight, clarity, and courage. Many will now reconsider humanity's role in the galaxy. This was not a moment for pride. It was a demonstration that humans could act decisively, ethically, and intelligently. Their presence could reshape not only perceptions but the course of interstellar affairs. The delegates began to discuss the implications of the findings. Some acknowledged human insight openly, others quietly revised their assumptions. Even those who had attempted to create traps would have to adjust their strategies, realizing that humans were not easily manipulated. The galaxy, for all its complexity and intrigue, had underestimated humanity once again, and once again, humans had exceeded expectation. Later, as the council session concluded, the Queen led Elias to a quiet observation chamber overlooking the city. Lights reflected in the crystalline towers below, casting a shimmering glow that danced across the surface of the central lake. "You have done something remarkable today," Seraphine said softly. "You have shown that even in the face of deliberate deception, humans can act decisively, prevent conflict, and inspire confidence. Your species' potential is becoming evident. Humanity combines both. You have demonstrated that courage, intellect, and insight are as vital as fleets or weapons. The galaxy is beginning to see that. They had influenced decisions, prevented unnecessary conflict, and proven that their species could act decisively even under pressure. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be further tests, challenges, and opportunities for enemies to exploit perceived weaknesses, but humans had the qualities needed to navigate them." Queen Seraphine remained silent for a moment, then spoke again. "Elias, your actions today have secured more than temporary respect. You have demonstrated that humans are capable of shaping outcomes, influencing decisions, and earning a place among the stars. Remember this as you continue to represent your species. Challenges will come, but so will opportunities. Humanity has never backed down from a challenge, and we will not start now. The galaxy will remember this day, not for fleets or battles, but for the courage, insight, and resilience of a single species that refused to be underestimated." The trials of diplomacy, deception, and negotiation were opportunities to demonstrate the unique strengths of his species. Humans were small, yes, and young, but their potential was vast, shaped by resilience, creativity, and the willingness to face challenges head-on. The stars above Lyria seemed to shine a little brighter that night, reflecting humanity's first true steps into the wider galaxy. And though the future was uncertain, one truth was clear: humans would endure, adapt, and rise to every challenge. The galaxy had underestimated them for too long, and now it would have to pay attention. Tomorrow would bring new trials, new opportunities, and new moments to prove that courage and insight mattered as much as fleets or weapons. But for tonight, humanity's place among the stars had been secured, not through dominance, but through intelligence, collaboration, and the quiet, unwavering courage of one human standing where none had expected him to stand. And as Elias Trent stood silently beside Queen Seraphine, he felt the truth of it deep in his bones. The galaxy had seen humans, underestimated them, and discovered something extraordinary. A small species, young and fragile in appearance, had the capacity to inspire, influence, and endure. Humanity's journey had only begun, but its mark on the stars would endure for generations to come.